Welcome to Alaska Matters. I'm indeed Christopher Story, your host for Great Adventures in the Last Frontier. And today, you and I are going to go on an adventure. And I hope we return from it. It's one of those that it may have no end in sight, but nevertheless, I hope you booked a round-trip ticket. We've got 30 minutes of an exciting program today. My guest is an author, is a spokesperson, is somebody that is an expert and a notable authority on the subject of Agenda 21. You and I have been scratching the surface of it, but I want to introduce you later to Niki Raapana. She's written 3 different books, one of which is available today that you need to know about, and she'll tell you everything you need to know about Agenda 21. This is not something that can be covered. I was telling her before we went on air that I made the mistake of trying to print the entirety of Agenda 21. She just started laughing. Clearly, it was beyond the scope of my imagination how big a document this really is. But one thing that did strike me as important, just right off the top, I randomly picked a chapter 21 through 22. This is the global action for women towards sustainable and equitable development. And there's a subset of this chapter that talks about local governments ought to implement the following, and that is to promote the reduction of the heavy workload of women and girl children at home and outside through the establishment of, this is, remind you, local government establishing more affordable nurseries, kindergartens, etc., and to promote a diversity between men and women sharing the workload at home. And the hair on the back of my neck stands up. And I say, why do I want my local government being told by the United Nations that my daughter ought to do anything or not ought to do anything? What business is it of theirs? That's my question for you today is, how free are you? How free do you think you are? Because you may not be as free as your imagination would let you believe. When it comes to your local government telling you what type of bag you may or may not use within a business that you either own, operate, or frequent as a customer, you really got to question yourself and ask very honestly and be prepared for the answer you may not want to hear. How free are you? Well, that seems to be diminishing. Again, today you'll meet Niki Raapana. She's an author, speaker, expert. What is communitarian governance, and what's behind Agenda 21 in the United Nations? What's the whole point of it? Why are they changing the name to Future Earth? And again, are you as free as you think you are? Well, stick around. You'll find out. All that's coming up here on Alaska Matters. Welcome back to Alaska Matters. I'm Christopher Story. Mr. David Webb is engineering and producing this program for you today and your listening pleasure. I'd like to take this time now to introduce Niki Raapana. She's an author of the book called 2020, Our Common Destiny and the Anti-Communitarian Manifesto. Niki, welcome to Alaska Matters. I'm confused. Right off the top, would you tell me what is, just sort of in a nutshell, what is Agenda 21?
Agenda 21 is just mainly the transformation of the marketplace from whatever you had before, whether it was a free economy or protected economy, a dictatorship where it was completely controlled by the state, or, just open. I mean, there's so many different kinds of governments around the world. All of them are being brought under the same umbrella system, and Agenda 21 was just the blueprint of how to incorporate the changes into your local area depending on what you already had. Like China's transformation was different than the United States and different from the EU and different from Africa. Each place in the world had their own adaptations that they needed to make in order to fit into the new global system of global governance.
Well, wait a minute. That's an interesting point you're making, because China, you specifically said China would have an easier time implementing an agenda like this simply for the fact that they're communist and they force it onto the people, whereas in the United States, where we have liberty and freedoms, it would have to be a little bit more of a subtle approach to co-opt from the local communities out?
Well, it's subtle in some ways and not so subtle in others, but yes, China had to adopt more of the free trade, open market principles, okay? They had to adopt, because communitarianism is a balance between capitalism and communism and a lot of other things too, but mainly it's the opposing ideologies, and religions that need to all come under one system, one governance system. So the hardcore communist countries had to become a little bit more capitalist.
I
Not
see.
necessarily individual liberties. They're lagging in those. They'll never have them. We know that. But they're having to say, and we have to say continually that they need to, their human rights violations are, still pretty bad over there, whatever. But the transformation from a communist to a communitarian country is basically the opposite of what it is for Americans and most of your Western Europeans.
That's fascinating because that makes the subtitle of your book, Our Common Destiny, makes a lot more sense. We're racing to the middle, if you will.
Yes, it's called the Radical Middle. It was called the Third Way in the 90s when it was first introduced in the 90s, right before Agenda 21 was actually adopted by all the nations at the big Earth Summit in 92. There was a lot of preliminary work that went into it, and the philosophy was established in around the late 80s, early 90s, and that is the philosophy that was adopted. It became the legal system, too, okay, because philosophy is also your law, where ours is property rights, which means all our law is based in property, either damages to property, damages to people, meaning they're the property, You can't even go into a civil court in the United States without claiming damages, to something. There has to be a cost involved. So our entire system is based on that.
Define for me what is communitarianism?
It's a dictatorship of the community.
Okay, so in other words, just for and I'm really trying to make this clear in my mind, and I hope in so doing it will be clear in yours listening. So communitarianism, we've got communists, as you said, are becoming a little bit more capitalistic. We are capitalistic, well, largely free trade and largely capitalistic in this country, the United States. Meeting in that radical middle, as you describe, I'm still trying to figure out the why and the who. Why would this benefit the United Nations? Who is the United Nations? We are a member of the United Nations. What is the ultimate overarching purpose of this, as you see it?
Okay, one world religion. This is a religious concept also, and that's the hardest part for people to grasp. That environmentalism, the religion of environmentalism, is the new world religion. And all of our churches are being adapted to the communitarian principles of building community. Community economic development is all about taking our communities and transforming them through local initiatives. This is where local Agenda 21 comes in, because it has to be done at the grassroots level, and it has to look grassroots. And since we don't speak their language, the language of sustainability, we don't understand what the terms mean. When they say that they're creating a communitarian green space, we have no idea what that means. And that's why the book is all about the definitions and has a glossary in the back. And we did our best to translate the terms to see, so that we could see exactly what they mean to the planners. Because the way we read them as average people is not exactly what they mean. This is an academic language that was created purposely for this. And the people behind it, that's really where it gets into conspiracy theory and speculation, I have to say, okay?
Right.
I try not to go anywhere where I can't document. I'm a nonfiction journalist. I was trained to, look for the facts. And if I can't substantiate something, I just don't use it. And the thing is, you don't need to. You don't need to make anything up about this. There's so much now available that all you need to do, like in Homer, look up Sustainable Homer. And look at this beautiful website that they have. There's a lot of money behind this thing. And the main thing is, it's just a shifting of the money. It's taking the tax base and putting it into other programs, making it sound like it's a local program, cloaking it in a local environment. But yet, what's really happening is they're sucking the money out of the businesses that aren't green. If you're not green and you're not sustainable, you lose in this deal. So it's basically it's a war of commerce. It's the ancient trade war, okay? The history of the world is about trade. Who controls the trade? I mean, they say who controls the money. I don't think that's necessarily the issue here. I think it's who controls the trade. Who controls local business? And in order for you to get certification as one of their businesses, as a sustainable business or a green business, you have got to allow them to come into your business and monitor you and regulate you, and not just your water and your septic and things like that, but your employees need to be monitored so that they are sustainably correct in their actions and the way that they, like the thing with the women and the people working at home. People that work at home in the United States, it's private. There's nobody regulating them.
Right.
They want to get inside those local,
Right.
any kind of entrepreneurship in this country needs to be, under their control. So it's a huge control issue. Global governance, they make it seem like it's so benign and so lovely because it's all locals. But there's only a few locals that ever benefit from this.
Well, Niki, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we may not be able to figure out why, but I think it'll be fairly obvious as to who loses in this case. And in my estimation, that is the individual. You will be the ultimate loser in this. Find out if I'm right and have an opportunity to win a Blackwater Bend coffee card on our Alaska Mindbender question right here on Alaska Matters. You're listening to Alaska Matters. I'm Christopher Story. This portion of the program brought to you by Blackwater Bend Espresso. Blackwater Bend is good people, good coffee, and good food. That's a business model I love getting behind. Serving Homer and Anchor Point with a smile, superb handcrafted coffee, award-winning custom roasted beans. Come on, Blackwater Bend Espresso, not your average drip. Here's your question. Participate, but don't take your ear off the radio. But do put your thumb on your phone and text message me now with this answer to this question. 299-7653 is the number. Here's your question. In 1943, the Japanese invaded the Aleutian Islands, starting the battle known as what? Was it the Thousand-Mile War, the Battle of Attu, or the Cold War? When the Japanese invaded the Aleutian Islands, they started the battle known as the Thousand-Mile War, Battle of Attu, or the Cold War. Text me now, 299-7653. Back to our conversation with Niki Raapana. She is my guest today. She's written several books on the subject. The most recent one is 2020, Our Common Destiny, and it brings into light Agenda 21 from the local perspective, the United States perspective, and a worldview with contributing authors and contributors to her book that will discuss the Canadian, the UK, different things that different world perspectives on this very complex subject. But Niki, it's called the Future Earth now, as I understand it. Why? Why have they changed the name from Agenda 21 to Future Earth?
Well, Agenda 21 has already pretty much completed its purpose, I think. That's just my opinion.
That's a scary opinion.
And also, a lot of people started learning about the word. Okay, so, and it was always open in some countries, like in England. Everything is called Agenda 21 done at the local level, they didn't have any problem doing it there. And in other places, Germany, again, there was tons of, still is a lot of local Agenda 21 initiatives, programs, plans. In the United States, it was, I was told in Seattle in 99 that our Agenda 21 plan was not Agenda 21. And that's when I learned about conspiracy theory, because I was called one, when I didn't understand what that meant. I said, well, it sure looks like we're following this plan. Sustainable Seattle was a presenter at Rio in 92. They're the lead local agency on all of the new regulations and administrative hearing and reviews that are going on, because I was under a land use experiment for how to abate homes through nuisance abatements, because a lot of this is a big property takings in the cities and the rural areas, and they had so many different ways they did it. So, through the conservation easements, the wetlands, the wildlands, the scenic byways. They have been taking land from Americans through all this new enforcement under environmental protections and environmental initiatives.
Well, and here's where I'm seeing that to really hit the nail on that head that you just pounded into the wood so eloquently, is to say they're taking the land, but guess what? You still get to keep it. You still get to pay taxes on it and look at it. You just can't use it. That is, in effect, also in alignment with this as a taking, is it not?
Yes.
I mean, if I take the use away from you, I've effectively taken it from you.
You're only allowed to be a steward of the environment now, and you have to be taught what that means to them. And what we're trying to do, my daughter and I are trying to teach you what it means to us. To become a good steward of the environment, because all the churches are grabbing on this now, okay? They're going to teach us what we have to do and how we have to live in order to care for Mother Earth, because this all ties into the whole Mother Earth religion. which is, developing. It's a lot of this stuff. It's in a transformation, and this is a global transformation. There's so many different ways that it's happening. That's what, like when you were saying, it's so big and so vast. And I was telling you, our website was so enormous because there were so many pieces. And pretty much now everything is part of this. You can't escape it. It's in the way people deal with each other. It's classist. It's racist. It's rude at its core. It's one person saying that the way that they have been taught to live is better than the way that you have been taught to live, and that they have the right, the new authority under the communitarian supremacy of law, to tell you that you have got to change your behaviors and fit in line with what they're doing.
This is fascinating. This is so anti-individual that, and you were talking about the churches. I can switch churches. If a pastor begins to speak in a way that is not to my liking, I simply move to the next church. If, however, the community authority, the government that is over you, is supposed to be by and of the people, but it turns out to be over the people, starts making laws, where do I move to? And if you're right that Agenda 21 has been so infected within the local governments all across America, as Ronald Reagan said, this is the last stand on earth. Where do we turn to? So talk to me, Niki, because you're saying a lot of things. This is way more information than I can process in my simple mind. Let me ask you a question. I'm opposing, personally and professionally, I'm opposing an ordinance that would remove your rights to use 50 feet of your property against an anadromous stream where fish are returning to potentially. Now, it could be a dribble, it could be as wide as a river and a creek. And I'm saying, wait a minute, there's, number one, you didn't let the property owners know that you were taking this land from them. That they didn't even know that this issue was being discussed, number one. No written notification. Number two, we already have 3- and 4-letter agencies, federal, state, and other, that are monitoring the fish and the biology behind it. Why is our local government getting involved? And I'm being labeled by some as even people within the Borough Planning Commission are even saying that I'm monumentally ignorant for not understanding the science. So I'm being painted as somebody who might potentially hate the environment, and it couldn't be anything further from the truth. So talk to me as just a local individual who wants to speak out about these things. How do I educate myself and others such that it's not that I'm just a hater of the environment?
Well, I think that, you got a good start going, okay, because right now reading and, studying and looking at the language that they're using to classify you and degrade you and ridicule you and mock you, because that's their MO.
Oh, yeah, it's happening.
And they can't stand up. If you go to them as, this is a communitarian law, all right? Once you know the type of legal system that they're implementing with this ordinance, which covers all the new law, is called communitarian law. And this is a real system of law. It's there's a lot of case law on it. It's called environmental communitarian law in the EU, which is the model, okay, for a lot of this stuff. Has been used in all of the trade agreements and stuff. And there are places in the world, like Panama, a place called Cologne, where they fought these developers to come in, because these are developers. They're community economic developers. They're sustainable developers. The core of what they're doing is redeveloping and making money and finding ways to suck you dry so that you can't make anything, really. It's like a surf system they want to have. So you as an individual, when you go in and you stand up, when you're standing up against one of the most powerful global organizations that's ever existed.
And you understand that some people will hear that and think that you and I are both nuts.
Well, they don't read if they think that.
Right.
Everything that I say has been so well documented. I mean, I over-documented. I had 10,000 sources on my website in 2003, 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Today, there's millions of places. All you have to do is look up a couple of keywords. Look up sustainable homer. Look up what sustainability means, and look up the way that they're using it and all of these little restrictions, because on the surface it looks so good.
It sounds too good to oppose, doesn't it? I mean, who could oppose that?
And communitarianism is a synthesis of all ideas, and it's supposed to be so perfect that there arises no opposition. One of the reasons we stayed in this game for 14 years was to show that there is opposition. It's not perfect. Mm-hmm. It has many flaws, Now, is sustainable development maybe a good thing if it was run by people who were actually cared about where they lived and were willing to, you know what I mean?
Well, I do,
A
and
lot
also
of people in the world that are doing that already, and they're being co-opted. Anybody who's already done anything good, like a community garden or any kind of local initiative that was ready to help their town or their city or the rural area, has been co-opted with the language and the plans, and they come with regulations and ordinances and law that will change the way that you even are able to do everything that you think you can do today. Driving, auto-dependent lifestyle is out in the plan. You know, like for Anchorage, I'm sure I didn't get into Homer's. I looked up your comprehensive plan, but I didn't have time to read the whole thing.
And when you look through the comprehensive plan, though, you made a comment to me that it's here. I mean, it's alive and well. Agenda 21 is alive and well within our comprehensive plan.
Oh, yes.
And to that point, I would suggest anybody go to the City of Homer website, go into the search engine, and just type in sustainable or climate action plan or what have you, and you'll find an abundance of information. And then I would encourage you to look up the book. It's called 2020, Our Common Destiny, and the Definitive Anti-Communitarian Manifesto by Niki Raapana and Nordica Friedrich. And that is your daughter, Nordica, correct?
Yes, that is my daughter. She started working with me on this when she was 14 years old, so we've really just stolen her life from her.
Well, it's fascinating. I'll tell you what, I believe that you both are speaking on purpose and of purpose, and we, you and I, can just need to continue to do what we're doing right here today, and that's converse and talk about it in an open and honest forum. And I do allow for debate. I can't stand what you said, though, is the name calling and okay, you're just ignorant because you don't understand biology and science. And well, Niki, it's been fascinating conversation, and I hope that you'll return and be a guest here on Alaska Matters in the future.
Well, I was happy to come, and I look forward to talking to you again and seeing how far you get with this.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'll post a link to her webpage on AdventureAlaskaRadio.com, so you can check that out. It's so important. This book is I hate to use the word monumental anymore because I've been accused of being monumentally ignorant, but it is a monumental document. You've got to get your hands on this book and check it out. It isn't too late. I don't believe at all it's too late to turn this around. I think that you and I together, if we're willing to speak up, I had a long conversation with our mayor of Homer yesterday, and Beth gave me a considerable amount of her time in both of her ears. And I really think that we in Beth have someone that's willing to hear from you. She wants to hear from you. And I'd say go do some research and then get involved and speak up. And she agrees with me that business owners shouldn't be afraid to speak their minds. You shouldn't be living in fear of reprisal. An employee of the local planning department her husband did take offense to myself and my words and has written letters threatening boycott and so forth. He happens to be a planning commissioner as well. These are the risks you take when you stick your neck out and you speak up. But guess what? I'm speaking up for you, the individual. I care too much about you and this country and my children's future to stay quiet any longer. Okay, I want to thank everybody who weighed in. It was the 1,000-mile war. I'll see you tomorrow on Radio Realty. Go out there and have a great day.